I think the good manuscript is first driven by the quality of the work, including methodology, and also the novelty of the work versus existing data in the literature. You should have some novelty to have a high quality work. Secondly, a well-written article or manuscript is really welcome. You should pay attention at the written of the manuscript, including the sentence should be short, and the quality of English, specifically for non-naive English people. Then you should pay attention of the choice of the targeted journal, and it's sometimes difficult to be realistic regarding our own job. So you should take the advice of your co-authors to target the best journal regarding your manuscript, and you should not target a too high journal, but not also a too low journal. So the balance is sometimes difficult, but it's very important if you want to have your manuscript accepted for publication. First of all, most of the authors speak about the cover letter, and many authors consider that the cover letter is the main issue. I don't think so. Anyway, the cover letter should be correctly written. That means that it should be short, very factual, and you should only explain in the cover letter what has been shown, and try to explain very briefly some points on methodology and novelty. This should be on the work no more than 2 or 3 sentences. Very short and concise. You should avoid to promise something that is not in your work. You should avoid to say that you found something wonderful that could give you the Nobel Prize. And so very short and concise. And don't forget to check in advance the name of the editor, because for the editor it's not very pleasant when he finds another name instead of himself. Then I would say that the main recommendation I would have is first to read the recommendation of the author for the target journal. You know, the recommendations are quite the same between the journal, but there's always this difference. So be aware of that and check first, before writing the manuscript, the recommendation to the author, and read again before submission. Then the title of the manuscript is very important. It's very important because it will be the first thing that will be read by the editor. And as you know, when you submit a paper, there is at least 2 rounds. The first round is to convince the editor that will receive your manuscript first, that he has some interest, your manuscript has some interest, and he will be willing to send it out for reviewing. So this is very important. This is the first round. And the second round, for sure, will be the peer review process. And it will be read your manuscript will be read at that time, by different reviewer. But these 2 steps, and the first step to convince the reviewer, don't forget that for example, the EULAR journals at Annals of the Rheumatic Disease, 85% of the papers are not sent out for review. That means they are rejected without reviewing. And in the second EULAR journal, in RMD Open, it's 75 papers are rejected without reviews. That means that it's the editor himself who decide to reject the manuscript. And the first point, cover letter could be of interest, but not too much. But then is the title of the manuscript. And second point that is even more important is the quality of the abstract. The abstract is really a key point. And frequently, the reviewer will only read, the editor will only read your title and abstract. So this abstract should be written very carefully, and it should be clear. The methods are very important and should be detailed as much as possible, including the analysis that will be performed. Then the result for sure should be written as concise as possible, and the conclusion should be driven by the results and the method. Don't write conclusions that are not in line to what has been shown and to what is allowed by the methodology and the results. And then I will recommend also that you, when you write a manuscript, you try to write it as short as possible and to be very well written, as I said before. Then you will write the discussion and the conclusion, and this should be, once again, like I said for the abstract, but also in the full text of the manuscript, should be driven by the results and the methods that you have used. Don't forget that the method you will write at the beginning of the abstract and of the full text, the objective of your work. And you should use methods that are in line with your objective to provide the best results as possible. And the data interpretation in this respect are very important, and this data interpretation will also drive the discussion and the conclusion. Finally, two other recommendations: the quality of the table and the figure. So pay attention at this point, probably less important than the other ones. But sometimes the reviewers complain about quality of tables and figures. So you have a recommendation in the recommendation for the author for each journal on the quality of tables and figure, what they want exactly. And finally, in the discussion and conclusion, pay attention at the literatures that you will report. You should have reported recent and literatures that is in line to your topic. Don't go everywhere. Focus on the recent literature on your topic. When you get the decision from the editor, first, it could be without review, your paper is rejected, so you should think about the submitted to another paper. But the more optimistic issue is that you are asked to revise your paper with a decision that could be usually a major revision, sometimes hopefully a minor revision. You should be happy to be allowed to revise. The possibility to revise doesn't mean that your paper will be accepted at the end of the process. So frequently, there is still a risk that the manuscript can be rejected after one round or two rounds sometimes or revision. So pay attention of the decision letter. You should carefully read the decision letter. You should explain when you revise your manuscript and you send it. When you send your revised manuscript, you should pay attention this time of the cover letter, probably more important than for the initial submission. And you should write here the response to the different question of the reviewer. It's really a point-by-point response to the reviewer comments. You should not avoid any question, and you should clearly answer to all the questions. You may disagree with the reviewer, but in this case, you should explain why you are not, you cannot, for example, make or answer or make the revision that is asked. But in this case, be very polite, be always very smart with the reviewer, and think that the reviewer have done a great job usually, and their main objective at this point is to improve your manuscript. So if they can think that you don't want to improve the manuscript, you don't want to answer to the question, it can be very negative in their precision. So always present a point-by-point response and copy of the manuscript with the track change that has been made. Finally, I would answer that once again, you should convince the editor that your work can be published in his journal. So title, abstract, novelty are important. Sometimes also probability of citation are important for the editor. Secondly, you should convince the reviewers that your job have an interest in the topic where you are working, and pay attention that the reviewers are usually experts in the field, so they may have a criticism regarding the methodology and the discussion, for example. And you should always facilitate the work of the reviewers at the first step, but also when you revise the manuscript.
Thank you, Professor Bernard Combe, for accepting our invitation in Eperim.com.
Thank you, Estelle.
Excellent.